Okay, so this is A, B, and C. So I'm going to have a negative B, that's a negative 3, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C. What's A and what's C? 2 and 9, okay. All over 2 times A. You told me A was 2. I'm going to pause there. Let you get caught up. Everyone caught up? See this part right here that I've highlighted? That part is special. It's called the discriminant. Don't remember? B squared minus 4AC is the discriminant. And it discriminates. It does. It tells you if you're going to have a real answer, an imaginary answer, how many answers. That's what that tells you. Okay? What is our discriminant here? You know?
No.
You don't have a calculator? Square root of negative 63?
Imaginary number.
Alright, yeah, so since we have a negative square root, do we have any real solutions here?
Nope.
No. If your discriminant is less than 0, then you have 2 imaginary answers. If it's greater than 0, you have 2 real answers. What if it equals 0? Any guesses on how many answers you have?
1.
1. Why do you have 1 answer? Like, does negative 3 plus 0, is that different from negative 3 minus 0? No. So if it equals 0, you have 1 real solution. It's called a double root, but we say it's 1 real solution. Alright, so let's take care of this negative 63. I'm going to break that down to negative 1, 9, and 7. Do any of those have a square root? 9 and the negative 1, right? What's the square root of negative 1?
1 and 1.
Oh, I. Okay.
Right.
What's the square root of 9?
3.
So we've got negative 3 plus or minus 3I square root of 7 over 4. Those are your 2 imaginary solutions. And there are 2 there, because it's negative 3 plus 3I square root of 7, negative 3 minus 3I square root of 7. So there are 2 solutions here. What's this thing called?
Discriminant.
Discriminant. Yes. Discriminant. I'm going to give you a couple of quadratics to solve with quadratic formula, but we're mostly going to focus today on how to complete the square. We're going to be completing the square today. So, but I'll give you a couple of these to try. All right, you have this one written down? Looks like a couple of your ones are still right. Okay, let's solve this one with quadratic formula. What's A? What's B? What's C?
4.
A is 4. What's B?
9.
B is negative 4. So when it says negative B plus or minus, what are you going to write there for a negative B? Right, a positive 4. Because what's a negative negative 4? Positive. Okay, and then what's C? negative 3. I'm going to warn you against something else too. If you use your calculator and you're finding that discriminant, if you do not put negative 4 squared in parentheses like this, you will get the wrong answer. When you do b squared minus 4ac, that has to be in parentheses. It has to be. Okay, go ahead, finish it out. Okay, so we're going to use negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So it's going to be a positive 4 plus or minus negative 4 squared minus 4 times negative 3 all over 2 times 4. What is the discriminant? 64 all over 8. Does 64 have a square root? Can I just cancel those 8's right there? No, you cannot cancel through addition or subtraction. That was another mistake a lot of you made on that last quiz. Like there would be a 2 on top, a 2 on bottom, and you just mark them out. No. This is 4 plus 8 divided by 8, and 4 minus 8 divided by 8. 4 plus 8 divided by 8, that's 12 over 8, which reduces to 3 halves. This is a negative 4 over 8, which reduces to a negative 1 half. What? Yes. Um, 16 plus, because that turns into a plus over there. Yes, that would be it.
So that 4 would be a negative on the way through.
Where? Here?
No, right there where it has negative b.
See, it was a negative, and
Okay.
a negative is a positive. Yeah. All right, one more quadratic formula, and then we're going to completing the square. People are still writing this one. All right. So what's different about this one? It doesn't equal 0. Right. They've got to equal 0. They have to equal 0. So what can you do to make it equal 0? Move it over. Subtract 3x, subtract 5. You have x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Now you're ready to go. Now you can do some math. Alright, so let's start this out. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared here minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. What's my discriminant? 29. Can anything happen to 29? Okay, you're done. You're finished. Yes. Alright. Well. Alright, completing the square. Like quadratic formula, completing the square will solve any quadratic. factoring only works on the ones that are factorable. If it doesn't factor, then you have to do something else. If it has, even if it has real solutions, it may still not factor. Completing the square will work on anything. If it factors, if it doesn't, if it has real solutions, if it has imaginary solutions, anything. But the biggest reason why you need to know completing the square, because later on we're going to do conic sections. And in order to get a conic section into vertex form or from standard form or move it around or work with it, you have to be able to complete the square. So you need to learn it and get familiar with it because later on it's going to be hugely important. Okay? So let's start with 2x squared plus 8x minus 1. I'm going to try to list the steps over here. So it does have some steps. Alright, first thing you want to do, isolate C. C is the 1, right? So we need to move it across the equal sign. So I'm going to add 1. So I have 2x squared plus 8x. Leave a gap. Well, you don't have to leave a gap yet. Equals 1. Okay? Now the next step, sometimes you have to do it and sometimes you don't. But we need to divide everything by A. If A is 1, it doesn't really change anything to divide by A. But A is not 1. So everything needs to be divided by A. This is when you're going to want to leave a gap. If it's 1, because what does dividing by 1 do? I mean, you can skip it. Okay. Step 3. Somewhere off to the side, square b over 2. I'm going to write this down. Add it to both sides. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do some math. Alright, so what's b? 4. 4 over 2 squared. What's 4 over 2? And 2 squared? 4. So I'm going to add that to both sides. Okay? Add it here. Add it here. That's square? That's just the procedure. Square b over 2.
Okay.
That's the step. Okay? That's what you do next step. You add it to both sides. So I'm going to rewrite this. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 9 over 2. Now, the reason we do completing the square is because what we've made right here is a perfect square trinomial. That is a perfect square trinomial. Remember when we were factoring, and that was one of our shortcuts? If you could recognize that it was a perfect square trinomial, then you could save yourself some time. What are two numbers that multiply to equal 4 and add to equal 4?
2 and 2.
2 and 2. So this factors down perfectly to x plus 2 squared. That's the whole reason we've done all these steps. then our last step that we're going to do is we're going to use square roots to solve. I'm going to take a square root here. I'm going to take a square root here. So I have x plus 2 equals plus or minus 3 over the square root of 2. You with me so far? Where are you lost? Take the square root, because what's the opposite of squaring? Square root, right? So if you do it to one side, you have to do it to the other. What's the square root of 9?
3.
And 2 doesn't have one, so it has to stay inside for just a minute, because we're going to get it out in just a second. Okay? So just a minute, it's going to stay there. Okay, so everyone with me now? Is x by itself? How can I get x by itself? Subtraction. So I have x equals a negative 2 plus or minus 3 over the square root of 2. If that stinking thing right there wasn't there, we would be done. But you can't leave that there. How do you get rid of a radical in the denominator? Multiply. We're going to write it as negative 2 plus or minus 3 square root of 2 over 2. You can say you're finished right there. You can be done right there. 3x squared plus 18x minus 4 equals 0.
Flip 4.
What's step 1?
I'll say 4.
Yes, add 4. Right. Okay, so I'm going to add 4. And I'm going to have 3x squared plus 18x equals 4.
Divide by 8.
Divide by a, which is 3. Everything gets divided by 3. So I have x squared plus 6x equals 4/3. Okay, so 6 over 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to add 9 here and add 9 here. Four thirds plus 9. Let's see. 31 over 3. Now, well, we got to rewrite this. Now, this is why we did this. Two numbers that multiply to equal 9 and add to be 6. 3 and 3. That's why we did this. So we can write it x plus 3 squared equals 31 over 3. That's why we did that. Okay? Yes, but now we use square roots to solve. I have x plus 3 equals the square root plus or minus the square root of 31 over the square root of 3. You know we're going to have to do something with that, right? Subtract 3. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 31 over the square root of 3. Now, we would be done, except for what? Yes, that's the stinking thing right there, so... There you go. Right there. Now, I'm going to give you one that's not too bad to do by yourself. I'm going to give you one, how about I give you one where A is 1? Alright, try this one. X squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Solve that by completing the square. So I'm going to have x squared minus 2x equals 15. There's no a to divide by here. A is 1. It's not going to change anything. So half of negative 2 is negative 1. And negative 1 squared is 1. So I add 1 and I add 1. And I get x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 16. What are two numbers that multiply to equal 1 but add to be negative 2? So that's x minus 1 squared equals 16. What's plus or minus the square root of 16? Plus or minus 4. Add 1. X equals 1 plus 4. And x equals 1 minus 4. So I've got two of them there. So it's 5 and negative 3.